What is up, Penguins fans? Happy August 12th. Well, happy Friday. I should say today is August 12th. We are, again, just about halfway through August, the worst month for this sport, because everything is, again, at a complete and utter standstill. But for today's show, have some good topics to discuss. We're going to get into what a potential contract extension looks like for Jake Guentzel. I almost forgot. He only has 2 more years left on his contract of $6 million. I don't think they're going to extend it this year, but after this season, I definitely think an extension could be in the cards for Jake. I'm going to get into what I would probably give him, what a nice comp would be for him, looking into the numbers. We'll also get into a Penguins target, Johan Larsson, signing overseas, and how it's kind of ridiculous that no team wanted him with his really good defensive impacts. And we'll finish off the show with some news and notes around the league. So that's all coming up right after this round.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at LO School Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So let's jump right on into it. So saw this topic on Twitter, and I was scrolling this morning. I thought, this would be a great one good podcast topic to discuss today. And it was a Penguins account, and the person asked, how much would be too much for Jake Guentzel for his contract coming up. And for those that don't follow me on Twitter, I put what I would give him on there, where I would kind of stop at this point. But yeah, that negotiation is going to come up really quick. He only has this year and next year, and then he's a UFA. And if he makes it there, he's going to get paid. He's only going to be 29 to 30 at that time anyway. The Penguins will have to be careful with that contract, because those kind of deals that go well into your 30s, a lot of them I think age pretty poorly. I don't know if Jake is going to be one of those players just because he's so freaking good, but there's always a lot of risk involved with that kind of deal. And Jake was incredible again this year. 40 goals for the second time in his Penguins career. He's the only other player in the Stitchino era to have multiple seasons of 40 or more goals. If he has 35 to 40 goals this year and the next year, I think he can push for $9 million per, either from the Penguins or on the open market. If you were to ask me right now, I think anywhere 8 times 8, 8 times 8.5 would be pretty fair. Basically the Filip Forsberg comp. Forsberg, another very underrated goal scorer in this league. Remember, him and Jake, they kind of came into the league, close to the same time. Well, I shouldn't say that. They're the same age, but Forsberg came in a little earlier, just because the pedigree and the hype around him was obviously a bit more than Jake. I don't think anyone expected Jake to be as good, if not better, than Filip Forsberg. But they both had pretty similar production, ever since both came into the league. And I do think Jake is going to be looking at that deal and be like, okay, this is probably the baseline of what I can get, but if I can produce even more, what's to stop me from getting over what Forsberg got? And in my opinion, I would probably even go 8 times 9 right now. More than 9, I think that's a little much. At least in this point in time, I don't think he's going to push for 10 million per. I think that the 10 million per players are, that's only for the elite players in this league. I think Jake is great. I think he is one of the elite goal scorers in this league. But I'm not going to sit here and say that he is, one of the 10 best skaters in the league that should be getting over 10 million. I think that will be a mistake to say. I think I would look a little too biased with that. Part of my job here is to be objective as I can with regards to the Penguins on this podcast. He definitely has the opportunity to be at a point per game pace these next couple of years. This past year, 84 points in 76 games. The year before that, 57 points in 56 games, 43 points in 39 games. So 3 years in a row now, he's been at or just a little. Actually, no, yeah, 3 years in a row now he's been over a point per game. The year before that, 2018-19, when he hit 40 for the first time, 76 points, 82 games. Low under a point per game pace, but still, 4 elite seasons in the NHL, and it's he will get a boatload of cash, whatever that is. I mean, it is the Penguins have him on a bargain right now. I don't think that can be stressed enough. If he were to hit the open market, say Brian Rust and Jake Guentzel switch places. Say it was Jake that was hitting the market this year, right after he did what he did. Oh, there would have been teams lining up to get their hands on. I think the Penguins probably would have had him extended before the UFA market opened up. And by the way, it would have been a little bit harder to keep him, Letang, and Malkin all together with the Capitals. Even with Malkin and Letang taking less money, I do think it would have been a bit harder. But Jake, he easily would have gotten for the Penguins this year, 8 times 8, 8 times 8.5, probably a little higher. He honestly probably could have asked for 9 if he wanted to. If he repeats this production 2 years down the line, he might ask for more than 9. And again, I'm not super crazy about that. And I'm worried about it because players get into their 30s, they start to go downward, and maybe he's going to age gracefully like a Gino, but maybe he'll stay a little more healthy like a Sid, who's just crazy with his work ethic and stuff. Crystal Tang, maybe he'll age like them, but the chance, but there's also the other side of it where you don't really know if he's going to really age like them. But you look at the numbers this season from Jake. When he was on the ice, the Penguins had 54% of the shot attempts, 57% of the goals, 53% of the expected goals, 55% of scoring chances, 54% of the high danger chances. Just elite level numbers. I mean, I've said it so many times on this show that he's a top 5 goal scorer in this league. Easily top 5. And anyone that argues that he's not a top 10 goal scorer in this league probably doesn't know what they're talking about. But I think top 5 is definitely in play with what he has done the last 4 seasons in the league. So I don't think you're going to see anything on the extension front this year. I think Hextall's going to keep it quiet with that. But after this season, especially if he has another good year, could really see Lon trying to open up contract talks with Jake and be like, hey, you're a year away. How do you feel? Where do you stand? Do you want to stay here for the rest of your career? Because once you sign this contract, you'll be at the end of it 37, 38. You'll be close to 40. So that's, I think, going to be the big question. Will he actually want to go and test the market and see what he can get from other teams? From all indications, he seems very happy here. I don't think he would want to do that, but sometimes players, when they have a chance to do it for the only time in their career that they can, they want to do it. Like Johnny Gaudreau, and I'm not comparing Gaudreau and Guentzel as 2 players, but Johnny, he owed it to himself to test the market. He had a great offer from Calgary, decided to go closer home to play with the Blue Jackets. John Tavares had, I think, a pretty good offer from the New York Islanders. Took some other offers from teams when he got to free agency. Went home to Toronto. Sometimes players want to do that and try to just see what free agency is all about at least once in their career. So at the end of the day, it's still a couple of years down the line, but it's something to think about. It's pretty nuts that Jake is only making $6 million for the next year, especially after what he's done throughout his career. He is criminally underpaid right now, and that is going to change. But I think the Penguins, they should have the cap space available in the next couple of years to pay Jake. Kapanen comes off that same year. Jeff Carter comes off that same year. Zucker comes off next year. Blueger comes off next year. Heinen, Archibald, Brian Doolan comes off next year. Tristan Jarry is a UFA, but though he might get extended. And then Ruido comes off in 2024, 2028. Mark Friedman, and then Casey DeSmith as well. So the Penguins, despite them always being up against the salary cap, they will have the space, I think, to pay him. And I'm sure they will probably be able to move a contract or two if they need to in order to pay. I don't think the flat cap is going to be that big of an issue at that time. I personally think the cap will have gone up in the next couple of years. I mean, obviously, we're all really feeling it right now because everything has gone to a standstill. But I think they'll have more space to pay Jake at that point in time. So that wraps up this first segment. Let me know what you all think. Do you think that Penguins should get more aggressive and try to pay Jake right now? Or do you think they should, wait till the end of the season and then try to negotiate a contract? And if you think that, what do you think he should get from the Penguins? I think that's definitely probably going to have maybe some difference of opinion from some people, but would love to know what you all think with regards to a Jake extension. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to get into the Johan Larsson stuff and why it's kind of ridiculous that he is not signing with any NHL team, namely the Penguins, who were, of course, linked to him. That news came in on Wednesday. I just did not have a chance to get to it after yesterday's episode. But before I get to that, BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. You can find all of your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. You can find reviews and news from every league, including MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports-related information, from live in-game betting, sports, and podcasts. They all have you covered. You can head to the BetOnline today or use your phone to learn all the trends in action. That is BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm your host, Homer Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Homer Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at @LO_Penguins. So just the other day, it was on Wednesday, that we got the news that Johan Larsson is going to not be signing in the NHL. He actually signed in Sweden. He's going to be playing overseas next year, and again, the fact that he did not, sign any deal with the NHL with an NHL team, sign with the Penguins, let alone any NHL team, I think is how I wanted to say it, is almost criminal. Honestly, he is one of the best defensive forwards, in the league. If I can just, find it, I'm just going to pull up the numbers here. I know I talked about this a few weeks ago when he was linked to the Penguins, but it's pretty crazy that no one wanted him. And yeah, the Penguins, I know they would not really have the space right now. I still think they maybe would have had, a chance to make a deal if they signed him. But, if you added Johan Larsson to their bottom six right now, that looks a little more formidable. Again, you would have had Jake Guentzel, Sidney Crosby, Brian Rust on the top line, Jason Zucker, Rickard Rakell, and Evgeny Malkin the second line, Jeff Carter on your third line with Danton Heinen, maybe Kasperi Kapanen, and then, Johan Larsson, Teddy Bluger, some mix of Ryan Poehling, Brock McGinn. Your forward depth is looking that much better. I think at that point, there would be, I think, some really serious battles in the bottom six. I think Larsson would one of those battles, but I think he would have made the forward group, that much deeper. You look at his numbers from this year, from when he was in Washington, he played 14 games. He was on the ice. Capitals had 55% of the shot attempts, about 50% of the actual goals, 57% of the scoring chances, 61% of the high danger chances, and then 60% of the high danger goals. Very good numbers. He was traded for at the deadline for a pick. It's crazy that he could not ink out any sort of deal with an NHL team. It doesn't really make any sense to me at all, to be honest with you all. But he's going overseas. Again, from what I was told, I think he was going to be signed. Had the Penguins moved Teddy Bluger in the original offer for Jeff Petrie. Remember, it was supposed to be Pettersson and Bluger for Petrie. Montreal said no, from what I was told. They wanted Matheson. They said the only way this was going to work is if you move Matheson in the deal. Ron Hextall didn't want to do it. He wanted to keep Matheson on the team. I imagine he probably wanted a Matheson Petrie second pairing, or something like, or maybe Matheson on the third pairing with Trevor Weedle. I don't know. He wanted all three of Letang, Matheson, and Petrie to stay on the team, but sometimes you can't always get what you want, as the Rolling Stones song said. So that Matheson ended up being in the deal, and the Penguins, after they made some moves, they were not able to make it work. And I think that's where it fell through. I'll never forget Danny Shirey of DK Pittsburgh Sports. Shout out to him. I asked the question at the press conference, and it's like, is there any truth to the report that you signed Johan Larsson? And Hextall just like scoffed on him, just like, how in the heck did that get out? And that's obviously when he confirmed that Archibald was going to be a Penguin and not Larsson. I would love to, sit down with Elliot at one point and just talk about, just why did it, is that the full reason? Because, Blueger's in the trade, is that why it fell through? Because the Penguins are trying to make him their fourth line center? Or, do they realize that they just didn't really want him anymore? But again, it definitely stinks that he's not going to be in the Penguins. I know some of you all had questions in my DMs and on the YouTube page and all that. Well, here you go. Not going to be signing with the team, playing overseas next year, and that's that. It would have been a really nice addition to the Penguins forward group, absolutely on that front. But at the end of the day, they were not able to make it work just because of the salary cap situation, and they were not able to, I think, make the best deal that they wanted to with regards to getting Jeff Petrie. That said, again, I'm really stoked to have Petrie on this team. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this year, to say the least. But that wraps up the second segment for today's episode. Coming up in the final segment, we'll get to some other news and notes around the Penguins, including some of the players playing in a little summer league out in the Midwest a little bit. Teddy Blueger and Jake Guentzel have been lighting it up out there. Stay tuned for that coming up after this commercial break. All right, I'm back here in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LRSO Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. So a couple of the Penguin players have been playing, and so it's called WD League. Yes, you heard me right. That is where they are playing. It's out in the Midwest. A little bit, if I can find the tweet here. Don't know where the heck it is. This is like kind of ridiculous that I have not been able to find it. Okay, finally, that just like took way too long to get to. But every year on it since 2015, some Penguin players, so they traveled to Minnesota, which is where it's held. So it's a charity summer league that brings together some of the NHL's top talents to give back and grow the sport of hockey. It's for a great cause. It's awesome. Jake Guentzel has been a regular there for the last several years, and he is just lighting it up for the team that he's on. He leads all players in goals, assists, and points. And here you go. 15 goals, 27 points in just a handful of games. These players stand no chance going up against one of the best goal scorers in the league. He has just been absolutely awesome. Tristan Broz, he's also participating in Penguins prospect. He hasn't scored a point, but he has 3 games with the North Sun. He has not scored a point, but he did pick up a goal with Element. Teddy Blueger, he's also been participating in the Beauty League, and he's been scoring. I know he doesn't do that as much with the Penguins, but hopefully scoring in this league can lead to more goals for him this year. In just a few games, 4 goals, 10 assists, so 14 points in 6 games. If Teddy Blueger ever had that kind of production on the Penguins, I would be stunned, and I would just also be so happy. Again, obviously it's a lot different going up against NHL competition compared to this competition, but it's still good to see him playing well after he struggled more than I expected him to this past season. I kind of get the sense that the front office is, I guess, not that enamored with him right now. Just I get that it's more like an educated guess, but how they were willing to include him in that original deal for Petrie and how he looked in the playoffs. I guess I'm kind of not surprised that the staff is a little bit down on him, to say the least. But again, hopefully he can get some confidence back here, and confidence back going into the season. But it looks like so far he's been playing pretty well. Nick Bukestad, former Penguin, he's been participating. Jason Zucker played in 1 game, and 3 goals, 3 assists. So 6-point game for Jason. I know he probably won't do that at all, I should say, for the Penguins this year, but it's good to see him back and healthy and playing well. Honestly, even if it's only one game, I'm really excited for his offer this year. I may be in the minority for that. I guess I've always just had a soft spot for him, but when he's healthy, and I know that's it's few and far between when he is healthy, I definitely think he makes a big impact for this team. And as it stands right now, he's likely going to be on a beginning offense wing this year, unless they go out and trade for another winger or make another splash, something like that. I think he's going to be on that wing. And if he stays healthy, I know I made the bold prediction last year that didn't come true. I may go that way again. If he stays healthy, maybe 20 to 25 goals. You all may think I'm a complete moron for that. I totally understand. You can call me an idiot in the comments on YouTube, and you can DM me and all that stuff. But, that's how high I am on him, excuse me, when he is healthy. That's obviously, again, the big thing for him is just to stay freaking healthy. Ryan Poehling, he's also played in a couple of games. He scored a goal. Alex Goligoski, he's also played in this. And again, it's a fun league that's for a great cause. It's definitely worth checking out if you like to look at summer hockey and stuff. I know the World Juniors are going on right now. I would probably talk about them a lot more if there were a lot of Penguin prospects playing, but they don't have many playing because their prospect pool is really bad. Part of me, also understands that the whole Team Canada situation is just brutal for everyone involved. It's gross, these allegations that I'm not going to go on a whole rant about it. I'm sure if you caught up in the news, you know what I'm talking about. This is the kind of stuff with Team Canada. This stuff has to leave the sport for good. But if you are a fan of summer hockey and you want to add more, that's not just the World Juniors, I would definitely check out the Beauty League, the Penguins Twitter account. They've been posting all about it all summer. It's also good for the players here to just stay in shape and stay in game action. The players obviously going to be coming back to Pittsburgh in the next month. As long as they don't get hurt and it looks like they're kind of just gliding out there anyway. I think I'm totally fine with them playing that league as long as like a Max Pacioretty situation doesn't happen where he has to miss the next 6 months with a torn Achilles that he suffered. I think it was off the ice anyway, but still, those kind of injuries can happen at any time. So again, as long as nothing happens there, totally okay with that. I think that's going to wrap up today's episode. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode, but I'm still glad to be able to give you all 20 to 25 minutes 3 days a week of Penguins content. I will be back with another episode on Monday, which will be August 15th. That will be the official halfway point in August. We'll see if anything happens around the league this weekend. I was reading Danny Shire's report on DK Pittsburgh Sports today, and he spoke to someone, and apparently he said he's never seen the market like this, which just comes to a standstill. Apparently, a lot of teams that have cap space are asking for the world from other teams that want to dump salary on them so they can sign some of these players. And right now, that's why you're not seeing any movement. And I think that's one of the main reasons why the Penguins have not made another move yet. I think in a perfect world they would have wanted to make a move by now. Camp is only about 5 weeks away at this point, but the reality is, I think teams are probably asking them for more than just a player. They probably want draft picks and some other stuff. So we'll have to see. I think you're going to start to see some action. Hopefully, around September, closer to camp, when I think teams will lower some of their asking prices to take on contracts. But yeah, thank you all so much for listening to this episode. I really, really appreciate it. I'll be back on Monday for another one. Hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. We're getting closer to 700 subscribers on the YouTube page. We can get there before the season. That will be splendid. I'm planning to have some more guests on these last couple of weeks in August and then obviously in September leading up to camp. We're getting closer. About 5 weeks at this point until camp opens, and a few more months until I'm back at PBG Paints Arena for the first time. So definitely exciting things ahead. So hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I'll talk to you on Monday.